My name is Charles T. I'm working as customer advisory for SAS Philippines. And today we'll be talking about data, analytics, and AI, and how it can affect your customers' businesses, right? What are the trends? What SAS can do for you? And what are the results that we can provide for your customers? Sorry. So SAS Vision is about transforming a world of data into a world of intelligence, right? So over the next few slides, I'll be discussing what we mean by data, how we measure intelligence, right? How can we turn data into intelligence? What are the trends that are driving businesses to invest in AI and analytics? And what SAS does and what we can do for your customers. So we are in the middle of a duality, right? We're entering a world where there's just so much abundance in data, and we're running into issues in terms of privacy, reputation, and more customers are seeing value in their data. But data, if you're not able to act upon it, if you're not able to make decisions or make predictions from your data, then the value is lost. So that is what intelligence is, right? You're able to use your data to make decisions, to automate decision points, to create, to help businesses make predictions and act on information as they come in, whether it's through automation, whether it's through personalized marketing, or just creating better outcomes for their customers, right? So that is what intelligence is. And if we look at the business value on just data monetization, it is expected to grow to around $370 billion in the next 2 years, right? To put it into a more relatable frame, right? The Hollywood industry on its own is just about $180 billion. Data monetization, the next 2 years will overtake the entire movie industry as it grows by about 30 to 40% per year, and would become almost twice the size of the whole movie industry by 2023, right? And what is driving these changes? Right, so the next few slides will be talking about trends in the various industries. So please bear with me. In manufacturing, we're seeing a growth in electric vehicles with more and more digitization inside the vehicles, creating information, creating data. And this becomes more and more valuable as companies figure out how to monetize where you're going, how fast you're going, and the paths that you take. Modern traffic controls have been using toll gates and Waze information, for example, to predict traffic and plan and do urban planning, right? The high-tech semiconductor industry, they're building a lot of the companies have been expanding towards creating sensors, connectivities, as well as being a lot more specialized, right? Creating components instead of the device itself, which requires more data exchange between companies themselves and more information to be shared. There's massive amount of data that needs to that is being created by these interconnected industries, not only in just R&D, but also in terms of logistics, right? We're seeing better trade between companies, sharing of intellectual property, and as well as supply chain connectivity, right? And all of these are creating new categories of data for these customers that needs to be managed and needs to be acted upon on, right? For high-tech OEMs, we're seeing a lot more IoT devices and wearables, right? My home alone, I was surprised that my washing machine can actually connect to our Wi-Fi right, for diagnostics. In fact, by 2025, your wearable will be able to diagnose you much, much better than your first visit to your doctor. In fact, my watch can tell me if I'm stressed or not these days, right? It sets an alarm on my stress levels. I don't know how it calculates that, but it seems that it is able to. And we're seeing these device manufacturers looking at a lot of possibilities on just monetization of the data that is being collected, right? Aerospace is fascinating these days. We're seeing a lot of space exploration. More and more satellites usage for consumer use of satellites have been created, and new uses for spaceships, right? In fact, the US military is looking at using spaceships as a means of transporting goods between military camps. This creates another set of new category of logistics that creates its own amount of data, right? And the companies that are able to use these data, that are able to create intelligence from these data, are the ones that's going to be successful. In retail, massive digital transformation is happening. It's happening to the customers, right? 73% of shoppers have used multiple channels to buy, right? And when they say multiple channels, it's not just brick and mortar, but they're using multiple storefronts digitally, not only through mobile, but also different payment systems and different sales portals to buy. Customers have become more digital savvy, looking for discounts, looking for special offers from different, more and more different channels. Netflix, and there's also the rise of new subscription-based industry, a new category on its own that has grown 100% over the last 5 years. Video games, movies, food, groceries, coffee, even wine has entered the subscription business, right? So these new changes in business models are cropping up, and more for these companies to be able to succeed and be able to grow in these new business models. They would need to be able to look at the data that are being collected, and data on digital platforms is easier to be collected now, and they need to be able to continuously innovate and act upon those data fast. Large trends happening in groceries as well. The rise of private labels. Private labels are brands that the groceries own. So think of this as like SM having SM bonus, right? So more and more private labels have been consuming the share of wallet of shoppers. In fact, private labels comprise 25% of a typical shopping cart, but for millennials, it's growing to around 32%. What does this mean? It's that retailers themselves are now competing against the brands they carry, right? And this creates a whole new of competitive ground between the big brands like Procter & Gamble versus the groceries that they use to sell their goods on. And this creates a competition between who can use their data better, who can adjust faster, and create new brands for their new customers, right? For utilities, utilities is a unique kind of business because it's heavily regulated. We're looking at utilities, a lot of them focus at risk, lowering their risk and cost. So we can see from the IDC Insights report, there's about 10 predictions for utilities. I'll be focusing on 3 that I think are more important to the topic right now. So first prediction number 3, utilities will be increasingly using advanced analytics to detect credit risk, right? So they're able to improve debt collection in general and be able to adjust faster to changes like COVID pandemic and future pandemics in the as they happen. By 2023, for prediction 4, we're seeing a shift in customer demographics. 45% of customers will be now residential. So this means that they would have more individual um, accounts to manage, right? And as we see in the trends in semiconductor, more and more intelligent devices are being deployed just for utilities. And these devices, in turn, create data that can be managed and can be that can take advantage of AI to enable resilient and flexible management. Right? We're seeing more smart grids. We're seeing more. For example, in Singapore, they've liberalized their electrical delivery by having more and more players serving on a shared grid system. As technology grows in terms of smart grids, smart water meters, smart pipes, utilities will be looking at how to gain an edge in terms of managing their cost by applying technology. And utilities that are able to reduce their costs by using technology and analytics through AI and machine learning, they will be able to control their costs and become more and more profitable. And they can now invest in something else. For banking, again, from the IDC insights, we're looking at different ways of banking that they're increasing, how they're increasing their digital transformation, right? By 2021, this year, 25% of banks would be transforming their lending environments with intelligent collection solutions, right? So this would allow them now to help recover more non-performing loans instead of writing them off, right? Especially banks has now seen the effect of huge write-offs because of the COVID government policies. Banks in the future would be looking at ways to do revenue assurance and intelligent collections. Because of the shocks in the economy and how regulators can have exposed their hand in seeing how they can suddenly stop certain collections or extend loan terms, banks would now be increasing. We'll see by 2023 will be increasing their use by revisiting their credit scoring models to take into account the change in behavior and the change in patterns, right? So this allows them to look at the new data that's coming in, the new behavior that the consumers have, and incorporate those in terms of their customers' credit scores. By 2023, 75% of all consumer and small business loans will be originated through AI-enabled automated processes. More and more loans would be deployed, would need to be competing with various different financial institutions, which includes fintech, not just traditional banks. And banks, to stay competitive, needs to be able to provide loans, approve loans faster, right? The speed at which they approve loans has a direct relationship on how much business they can get. And they're only able to do this through by using technology, whether it's AI or ML or through modeling. By 2023, we were seeing more and more banks moving towards creation of digital identities to drive new innovative business models, creating new sources of revenue. We're looking at different investment vehicles. We're looking at different products in terms of banks. Banks have been increasingly more tech-driven these days. Banks like DBS, for example, in Singapore, has been hiring more and more engineers, software developers, and data scientists, much more than finance graduates, because they believe that technology is the one that can drive in terms of innovation and creation of new business models and new revenue streams for them. So now that we know the trends that's happening, that's pushing data, that's growing the business towards intelligence, a lot of our customers are struggling into moving towards that world, right? They're coming up with questions on how does artificial intelligence fit in their current business paradigm? Because the change is so rapid. In 2 years, we're seeing a double in terms of potential business. We're seeing companies that are small but are very fast, that are able to take advantage of artificial intelligence, and companies that have established and relatively successful processes would now have to think on how can they now integrate AI, machine learning, analytics into their business processes and take advantage of that, right? Companies that are already doing analytics, right, are now trying to get to do it faster, doing more analytics, deploying more models, and this creates a huge backlog for them in terms of technology and just model creation and model governance. And customers are asking, how can we do it faster? How can we get our analytics models to production in a more timely manner, right? And we have customers as well that has invested huge amounts of money in terms of technology, right? They have a mishmash of best of breed or different open source from different talents coming in, and they want to be able to use them all and maximize their investments. So they also need flexibility in terms of deployment, whether it's cloud, on-prem, they're using web services, they're deploying it through APIs, they're using open source to Python and R to create models. How are they going to deploy it? There's so many tools available now. So there's so many skill sets, and customers need flexibility in terms of being able to do that. And of course, talent is always important. There's always a huge glut in terms of hiring and competition between data scientists and subject matter experts and architects to be able to do all of these things. And they are in demand because companies realize the value of being able to do analytics, AI, fast and well, right? And finally, very, very important is how do companies adopt data-driven decision-making, right? A lot of our legacy companies have been successful in their gut feel model, owners, smart businessmen deciding based on gut feel, but more and more data-driven decision-making has been proven successful, and customers are struggling how to adopt that to their corporate culture. So SAS has a vision, right, on how we are going to transform the world of data to a world of intelligence, right? And how do we help our customers? And that is through providing analytics for everyone, everywhere, right? So we know that we are entering a low-code, no-code era. We're seeing different personas using analytics differently. Some are business users, some are actual data scientists, right? And it's a mix of both that makes applied analytics successful. Everywhere means that we are now moving towards a more open environment where we're looking at APIs, open source technology, and different channels to execute and contact our customers, right? And analytics needs to be present in those areas. So we define analytics everywhere into 5 pillars: flexible UI, openness, learning and automation, digital guardianship, and analytics orchestration. I'll be discussing each of this point and their value one by one. As I said, flexible UIs is very important for analytics to be consumed by businesses, for it to be successfully implemented inside the organization. Analytics needs to be able to cater to different personas, whether it's data scientists who prefers to code, prefers to look under the hood. The UX needs to cater to different languages, whether it's open source or SAS languages. Business analysts want something visualized. They want something to be explored, easily explorable and fast. And information consumers wants to be able to see insights that are accessible and that's also updated in real time, whether it's at home, on mobile, or on their desks. And these are very, very important aspects to have to be able to implement a successful analytics project, or to be able to change corporate culture. UI flexible user interfaces needs to be there. Of course, open source, openness and integration. We're seeing a lot more technologies coming out, and SAS has embraced open source technologies, whether it's working with Python code, whether it's deploying open source models, right, and connecting to any data source. We've made strides in terms of being able to integrate with various data sources. We've made deployment much more seamless when it's whether it's on Python, on R, or on SAS, and easily deployable through web interfaces or APIs. And we've allowed we've also embraced coding, open source coding inside our interfaces. This allows companies again to attract different personas inside their to enhance their adoption of the analytics culture, right, and fast track as well their deployment of analytics in their organization. AI is something that is tricky, right? We've seen movies and popular culture where we see AI is replacing humans. We've read all of the articles where we see automation and AI replacing jobs. But at SAS, we believe that AI is maximizing human capability, right? There are many things AI cannot do that needs human touch, right? There are a lot of examples where we've seen AI has been biased against certain outcomes, and that's where the human touch comes in to create policies, remove biases, and be able to look at things from a different context and add more external variables to the model for the AI to make more meaningful decisions. And SAS has been committed to that approach. We've made it more and more, our AI and machine learning models more transparent. We've created tools in our pipeline to govern models and make sure they're performing well and that their biases are in check. So speaking of governance, right? So digital guardianship is also a big thing, especially now in the era of privacy, right? So we're looking at three aspects in terms of digital guardianship. Governance of your data assets by creating full visibility and control over access and changes in the data, right? Governance of your analytical assets or models by creating full visibility and control over your analytical assets, your models. And we're talking about any analytical models, from conventional to machine learning, from SAS or open source. We're adding more and more transparency into that. And finally, security and privacy, right? We've worked a lot with government bodies and digital privacy committees, right, to ensure that the data that's being collected can be more and secure and private, and that can be done in many ways, through tokenization, through anonymization, through abstraction, right? And we've worked with institutes like Microsoft, the GDPR, and various certification to ensure our processes, even in the cloud, it is secure and private. In terms of analytics orchestration, it has always been a debate between choice and control, right? More and more users and personas prefer choice, right? They want to be able to use any language they want and to be able to deploy it in any way they can, all right? Whether it's through using different tools, different ways to expose certain APIs through different channels. At the same time, um, IT organizations, marketing communications, policy, for example, in terms of how many times you want to communicate to the customer, um, IT policy, standards, and just general corporate rules want more control on how can this be managed and governed so that they don't incur any risk, right? Tight balance between the two needs to happen for analytics to be adopted successfully in an organization. At SAS, we believe that there is a balance between choice and control. With choice, we allow flexibility in terms of languages to be used, in terms of deployment, embracing open source, embracing standards in terms of APIs, and leveraging in terms of flexibility, in terms of deployment, whether it's cloud, on-prem, hybrid, and the slew of other options. Yet, we've also looked at ways on making it controllable by adding ways for you to authenticate and administer models, creating governance and logging, and through general transparency in terms of how the models operate in terms of their capabilities. So in a nutshell, right, it's the core principles of those flexible UIs, openness, automation, guardianship, and orchestration that helps put analytics for everywhere, for everyone, for everywhere. It helps customers transform a world of data into a world of intelligence, right? SAS does not only provide the tools and software for this, but we also provide consulting as well as education and even business advisory to help our customers navigate and move up their analytics lifecycle, right? And the next few slides, I'll be showing some of our success stories around the world where we have implemented use cases where we've seen analytics in action and how they benefit customers. So this is from a telco in South America, where the business problem is quite simple, right? They want to be able to detect early which customers are moving, are churning away from their subscription. That means they're looking at, they're thinking about switching subscriptions, right, on the telco. And from analyzing their data, they saw a certain pattern in terms of trigger points where they can determine whether the customer would be about to churn or not. One of those things is they realize that when certain customers starts to visit their competitor's website and to look at smartphones. So they are able now to create engine to detect that first defection trigger, right? And to confirm that defection trigger, they are now monitoring those that are receiving calls from their competitor, right? And all of that, they measure the average revenue from this customer, how profitable he is, that person, and how reliable that person is, how long that customer is, and all of various data, and let AI create the decision engine for a personalized offer for that particular customer to stop the churn, right? And they can deliver that through SMS, through call, through email, or through various different channels, right? So that is one of the use cases that we've done in a Latin American telco. For e-commerce, we've looked at also one of the problem for this particular customer is uh, abandonment of basket. So who among here, the last 6/6 sale has like put 100 items in their Lazada cart and then, decided not to buy everything, right? And just select a few or just abandon the whole cart altogether, right? This particular customer is looking at how to maximize revenue for those who put things in the cart, and how can they predict when they will be abandoned, and what are the variables or trigger points to make them stay and check out that shopping cart. So since everything's digital, they have a wealth of information that they can act upon on, and they use modeling tools to create models to predict based on the behavioral triggers, and create offers for these customers to finally check out their basket. This one's quite interesting for banking, right? So this one is a ATM error. So how many people here, right, has encountered errors in their ATM, whether it's the card that's been eaten or just, the money has not been released properly or at all, right? The funny thing is ATMs carries a lot of information digitally, right? They know the last transaction, how much was withdrawn, and they have enough sensors to determine whether the cash was retrieved or not, right? And this creative Russian bank was able to link up all of those data and information, right? Be able to trace ATM errors, right? Flag ATM errors and retrieve the last transaction, customer data from the last transaction. And if it's an error that has occurred, they're now able to proactively contact the customer and tell them not to worry, we're on top of this. This is the process, and we are working on it, right? This allows, this eventually reduce the number of tickets for this particular customer, trouble tickets for this particular customer, and increase their retention for their customers. We have a lot of other success stories in various industries. I won't go through each of them, but just looking at this slide, we have use cases for insurance, where we're able to, for some customers, increase their revenue by a factor of 3. For retail, we have also a lot of success, especially in light of how much digital transformation most retail customers are undergoing, right? Telco is also one of our big industries that SAS serves, because just the amount of data that they collect and the amount of use cases that the telcos have, whether it's managing customer tickets, forecasting capex outlay for their network, or just customer segmentation and personalized marketing, right, to increase incremental revenue per customer, right? So we have a lot of use cases for the telco industry as well. So just to recap, right, at SAS, where our vision really is to make analytics, AI, and machine learning accessible for everyone, everywhere. I've shown the use cases, talk about the trends. There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of creative things that data can be used to achieve business KPIs, right? And I guarantee you, most of your customers, right? If you talk to your IT contacts, they are doing 1 or 2 AI projects, right? AI related or data management projects right now, right? And here at SAS, that's where we can help, right? We can look at how to connect their various data sources. We can look at how to help them move towards visualization. We can help them go to advanced analytics through modeling and creating descriptive and predictive analytics, right? And also automation, creating decision engines, helping them create decision engines, apply AI and machine learning to those decision engines so they can make better decisions for better business outcomes. We also offer education, right, to help customers be trained on various disciplines, whether it's on fraud or forecasting or credit risk modeling. We have those, as well as business advisory for customers who are still unsure on how to go through the analytics life journey and what use cases can be available for them, what other successful companies are doing. We have business advisory for that to help our customers transform their world of data into a world of intelligence. Right. So there, thank you. And for anyone who is interested to learn more about what we can do, my email is here. So email is the key. So just feel free to email me. I'll be taking a look at there any questions.